When our daughter Ngaka Rayona tragically died, I realized just how much we humans suck at having hard conversations. And now there is no judgment here because I hold both of my hands up to say that for a lot of my life, I've definitely been that human. And it's actually been in my grief journeys that I've realized just how important it is for us to talk. But also, I will say that that's not everyone. And I had a minority within my orbit who were flipping amazing at just holding space for me, at being there for me in my grief, in the rawest of my catharsis, and to this day, speaking my daughter's name and bringing her up into conversation and giving me that entryway into a conversation that I would have all day, every day. Because the reality is, yes, I have a tattoo of grief that hums inside me every single day. There's a pain that will never go away, that I will die with, but there's also a whole heap of joy, of love, of meaning, and of beautiful memories that I also beam when I speak to, when I think about her. So in today's episode, this conversation feels really, really alive. And also because of my recent conversation with Will Wise, who is the founder of Cancer Bay, an incredible movement that is about destigmatizing the conversation around cancer and really bringing through messages of hope, of optimism, and of empowerment that's inspired by Will's journey as he's been living life with stage 4 cancer. And if you haven't checked out that episode, I would recommend that you go check it out, not least because in our lifetimes, 1 in 2 of us will be diagnosed with cancer. So it's a really urgent conversation that needs to happen. But in today's episode, I thought I'd go a little bit deeper into the hard conversations that we've been avoiding and why we're terrible at this, but how we can all, and I put myself in this bracket, get a little bit better at just holding that space for others as and when they need it, no matter what they're journeying through. So why are we so terrible at this? Where does this come from? Now, this comes from our culture, our society, our conditioning. If you think about the circumstances all the way back to your childhood, you might be like me where you reflect actually that a lot of difficult conversations were kept away from me as a child. They were behind closed doors, or they were briefly acknowledged, but never to be spoken about again. And I remember actually at school where there was a girl who tragically died in our school. And I remember it was briefly mentioned, no word after then. I remember when friends at school, when they had parents who went through difficult diagnoses or sadly died. And again, it was something that just wasn't really spoken to at all by any of the adults in the space. And equally, I can take that into my home as well. Difficult conversations that were avoided. And the thing is, we learn through our experiences, we learn through our conversations. We also learn as well through what we see on TV, the stories that come through in films, etc. And again, I think there's a real underrepresentation of the realities of life and death. And what that really builds in us is that we just are really this is my belief. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist or anything, but I believe there's a lack of experience in us being able to go through the uncomfort of having certain conversations, of sitting with it, of knowing and trusting, actually, I can handle this. I can hold these emotions. And what I found really empowering and inspiring in myself being in the grief community is seeing how many people have been through grief with conscious presence. And in doing so, realized I can hold this, and actually I can hold this for others. I'm seeing an amazing ripple effect happening in the grief community of people who are inspired through their own life experience to go out there, and whether it's that they train or it's just that they can have conversations that no one else can. And I want to call out one friend in particular, my dear friend Christiana, who was on episode 2 of this podcast. And she did just that. And that was really rooted in her experience. She held space for me as we were going through the death of our daughter. And I am so grateful to her, because just her being able to sit with me and hold that and to share her experience gave me the strength that I needed in that moment. And I think this is where that point of difference in perhaps what she did versus what others have tried to do is For a lot of us humans, we've got that fix it reflex. It's that, how can I make this better? And I actually remember my mum saying this to me, and it broke my heart a little bit, because she said, I just wish, when I was in the midst of my grief, she said, I wish I could wave a wand and make it better. And I think that is a beautiful image of our spirit. For so many of us humans, we just want to make it better. How can we fix things? But actually, one of the most powerful things that we can do is to just be. There's no fixing. You can't fix something when someone's going through something that's really, really challenging, like an illness, like losing someone who they love. There's nothing, we can't wave a magic wand and make it better. What it's really about is having that willingness to just sit and to be with what is, because actually that is the best gift that we can give. Next up, we've got the unhelpful platitudes that just roll off the tongue. And I can again understand that they come from a well-meaning place, but actually they're really not helpful. And they can also make it worse for the person who is navigating whatever their challenging journey is. So ones that I had shared with me are, everything happens for a reason. Yes, really, that has been said. Or even, sometimes you have to go through darkness to get to the light. Well, that doesn't really help me right now, does it? And yes, everything happens, but it doesn't necessarily happen for a reason. Or the other ones that you hear are, at least they're in a better place, or heaven got another angel. But what that does is it takes it away from a conversation that can be around the person who's in their grief. Where are they? We don't need to imagine a fluffy angel up in the clouds. Actually, what we can do is just be here now in the grief and just listen. And there's also a discomfort factor that comes in. So when it comes to hearing, for example, someone sharing that they've got cancer, or someone sharing anything else that is difficult, painful, and challenging in life, it asks us to confront our own fears. Is there a fear in there that is fearful of having a diagnosis, of going through a serious illness, of also of our own mortality? Can bring up a lot, which ultimately in the subconscious just causes us, we disconnect. So it's easier to look away. It's easier to ghost. It's easier to disappear from that conversation than to sit and to be with it. Because ultimately, when we're sitting in our discomfort, we're not just sitting in our discomfort for the person who is going through that journey, but we're also sitting in our own discomfort of our own fears. And this can also manifest in us not wanting to say the wrong thing. So we just say nothing. And I've definitely had that. I've experienced, there's been a few people, and again, I come with compassion to this because I can put myself in their shoes, who said to me, oh, I haven't messaged you because I just didn't know what to say. And I think my message is just say something, say anything, send a little heart emoji. That is so powerful, so beautiful. And in difficult journeys, when people are going through, whether it's grief or whether they're navigating an illness, I'd say there's a lot more that you can say that can be so supportive and so loving and so kind than what you could say that could upset them. And actually, the reality is you're probably not going to upset them any more than the fact that actually they're going through a process, for example, in grief, of processing that grief and moving through it. There's nothing that can be worse than that loss for them. And then there's obviously the toxic positivity problem that we have in this world. And I call myself out definitely at various points that I can connect to in my life where I have definitely drunk from the toxic positivity cup. And what toxic positivity does is it plasters a smile, it plasters positivity onto the difficult times in life, onto what we term as the bad emotions and feelings, when actually it's just part of the human experience. In good and in bad, that is wholeness. That is what it is to be whole as a human. But toxic positivity only wants the good vibes, only wants love and light, and not sitting with and being with the challenging side. So what we want is, we want people to be brave and resilient, instead of saying, actually, yes, you might have times where you really feel that bravery and you feel that resilience, but it's also okay to feel angry and exhausted. Or we might try to bring those positive platitudes in at a time when actually we just need to sit in the reality of what is. sit in that reality, whether that's with someone we love or just connecting into our inner world and being able to just be there with ourselves. And positivity definitely has its place, and that came through in abundance in my conversation with Will Wise, because he brings such hope, such optimism to the journeys of people who are navigating cancer diagnoses. But Will does it with that grounding in the reality. He's very open to speak to the challenges, those difficult times, and the fact that there will be cloudy days, and that is okay. But giving those tools to help people to root into a mindset that can be supportive instead of one that ultimately means that we're taking someone away from the truth of their reality and then being able to process it. So here's what we can do instead in order to have those difficult conversations and to really show up for people who we love. Firstly, dare to show up even when it's messy. You don't need the perfect words, you just need to be there. In fact, there is no perfection in these times. The person who you're supporting is in a messy situation themselves, so let's all be messy. Let's all be messy together. Share what's on your heart, speak from that place, keep checking in. Honestly, it's the most profound and powerful thing that you can do. The people who showed up for me are the people who I know I will be thinking about with gratitude in those end of life reflections when I'm on my deathbed. Next up, letting people feel what they feel. Instead of trying to fix things, just be with them and be with the other person in whatever comes up. Make that commitment. I open my heart to whatever comes through, no matter how snotty and tearful it is, because that's okay. So let them rage, let them cry, let them laugh, whatever they need. And for me, actually, that was the most powerful thing. My darling cousin Kira was one of those people who let me swear and get really angry. And she met me in that. She was like, yes, it's not effing fair. And that was so cathartic. That was exactly what I needed at those moments. And so what you can try is literally as simple as saying, this sounds really hard. I'm here to listen. Well, do you need a listening ear right now? I'm here. Here's all of the space. And then third up is following up. So making sure that you stay in it with that person, even just with little check-ins that take a few seconds to send on WhatsApp or wherever. Just being able to say, just checking in. No need for you to reply, but just know that I'm here. Or sending a little heart emoji or something so simple. Because the reality is that typically people around us soon after, whether it's a diagnosis or after someone who we love has died, but then they dissipate, they disappear. Life moves on, and it can leave the person who is, whether it's grieving or navigating challenges, feeling upset, feeling hurt, whatever it is, it leaves that person just feeling really isolated and alone. And so as we close out on this episode of Death on the Daily, I just wanted to wrap back around to the fact that it really is as simple as us just having conversations. Let's talk about it. Let's be open to it. Let's stay open when we feel like we're closing down, when we feel like something has triggered something within us. That's where we can bring beautiful awareness to say, what's come up in me and how can I stay open? And so ending this episode of Death in the Daily, as we always do with my note to self. My note to self today is 2 words, and it's simple. Stay open. And my invitation to myself, and if you want to take these words and integrate them into you and your forwards path, is when I feel that discomfort, how can I stay open? How can I open up those doors, those barriers that maybe have shut? And how can I see that actually in sitting in my discomfort as I hold space for someone else, I can give them the greatest gift as I also expand and grow. So wherever you are in your journey, whatever you're journeying with, and I'm sending you lots of love if it's something that is challenging, whatever's coming up, I'm sending you so much love. And I'm also ending this by saying, if there is that friend that you think, I just need to reach out to them. I just need to make sure that they know that I'm here and that they can have these hard conversations with me. Reach out, make it happen. because I believe that's how we create our ripple effect of compassion, love, and kindness in this world.
All of my gratitude to you for joining me for another Dead Conversation. Death on the Daily is edited by David Strutt. The music is Set Free by Katie Gray. And I am Tanya Wilkinson. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would be over the moon if you can rate, review, and subscribe. It really, really helps me to get the word out there. And if you want to say hi or to hear more about my work as a coach and death doula, including how I support my clients to navigate their death on the daily, then all of the ways that you can connect with me are in the show notes. I'll be back soon with some more Dead Conversations. And in the meantime, take good care of yourself and others.
There's a cold fire, there's a crossfire, and there's something inside, and we'll never make it.